Hi, my name is Alex, and we here at Wine Cellar Innovations take the innovation in our name very seriously. For that reason, we always want to be able to provide the most modern way of storing your favorite wines. Now, when it comes to modernization in wine storage, there's no better example than our cable wine racking system.
So originally customers sent us a design of a cable racking system, and they asked us to see if we could come up with a design similar to the picture. So we went online and did a search for cable nets, and we didn't really find, took a while to find anything that really matched what we were looking for. And what we found that was the closest to what we were looking to provide was a company that manufactured nets that are shipped assembled that are meant to be used to catch boulders as they're so that they don't go into a highway system or onto roads. So we ordered one of those as a sample to kind of take a look at the way it was assembled and how it was shipped and so forth. So it arrived to us, it was all wrapped up. Essentially they assembled the net, they rolled it up, and they shipped it assembled. We liked that concept. It was way thicker than what you'd want to use for a wine cellar. You know, it really had a bulky look.
In terms of cable wine racks, in terms of where they're best used, we often have a lot of customers that use them if they want something that's contemporary, if they want something modern, particularly if they want to display their wine bottles. So they want to create a dramatic display for their wine cellar, to showcase some of the bottles that they have. So we have a lot of customers who are interested in that. Maybe they have a glass enclosed space, so it's a presentation feature of the house and of the cellar itself. Typically our process in terms of quoting and designing to a customer all the way through the sale is we'll get in contact with the customer, we'll get the room dimensions and kind of get an idea of what they visualize or envision the space being. We don't want to just tell them this is what you want to do. We also want to get their take on what they envision the space to be, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to be using the wine racks and they're the ones who are going to be living with it. We want their input in terms of how it's going to look as well. So once we get and maybe we also might speak with the builder in terms of their interior designer or something like that. So once we kind of get that hashed out, we have a design team. We can do designs in AutoCAD. We can do both a 2D and we can do a 3D design upon request as well. And we get the design back to the customer, get the pricing back to the customer, and then obviously sometimes they may want revisions, they may want to tweak something here or there. We can do revisions for the customer and basically work with them to fine-tune the design until they're ready to get into purchase.
Yes. What must be considered for pre-sale design? The quantity, the height is a big factor, because the jigs that we set up are at specific heights, but they can go higher. We'd have to adjust for that. And whether the wine cellar is on a slope or on a flat horizontal. So
in the AutoCAD design, you'll get, basically what we do is you'll get a plan view, a top-down view in 2D, and then you'll get elevation views. So basically a straight-on view of each wall that the racking will be on. And in the elevation view, you'll see the cable racking system, you'll see the soffit and base. We'll also list the capacity, the full dimensions and things like that. Then like I said, upon request we can also do a 3D design view of the room in color, so you can get more of a realistic perspective of what the racking will look like. Sometimes it's easier for customers to visualize in the 3D model than it would be just a 2D.
What in the design that may affect the cost? Height, obviously. Quantity, obviously. And if it's an odd-shaped wine cellar, would actually come into, because we've had some that are very tall, and we've had some that go from a 3-foot slope to a 10-foot slope, so that affects the cost. The benefits of the cable wine rack, they're quicker to install, they're show off the wine better, and they're finished quality instead of having to be painted or treated.
We see customers that have very tall ceilings. So with standard wine racks, typically made of wood, you may have some limitations in terms of how much weight the wine rack can support. Our cable wine racks are made out of steel, so they don't have any real restrictions in terms of how much weight those can support. We've had some installations of cable wine racks that have gone as high as 20 feet. We do have some rolling ladders and things like that that can be used to help obviously access some of those bottles. In the previous one that we've done installation for, the customer themselves, if you think about it, the cable wine racks were suspended obviously 20 feet tall. They had a circular staircase running around the wine racks themselves so that they could access the wine racks at from any point. So when it comes to something like that, obviously we'll need to work with the customer, maybe with their contractor or builder, to create the best way to access the wine rack, because it's obviously not a typical type of display that you have going on. So it's going to take some coordination between us, the customer, and their builder in order to create a design that's going to help them in the long run.
Our cable wine racking system was born through a process of trial and error. For example, at one point we wanted to use one of our beautiful selections of wood for both the soffit and base, but later moved on to a plywood base to give a more concrete foundation to your wine rack. But we still were able to provide that unique look through an outer shell. Another example is, at one point we had experimented with anchoring the cable wine racking net to the soffit and base, but decided against it to provide an easier installation for clients. Additionally, we experimented with using metal clamps to hold together only one thickness of wire throughout the cable wine racking net. But unfortunately, through our various experiments, we found this didn't always hold. This process meant a harder time for our clients, and possibly we'd have to ship the parts separate.
Shipping the product unassembled would be extremely difficult. You would have to be able to find a method to be able to ensure the spacing between each of your connectors was exact. Very difficult for a homeowner, even a contractor, to do on the fly. You'd essentially have to have a large open area that you'd be able to lay all these pieces down on, and then you'd be sitting there with a tape measure going, okay, this is about 5 inches, and then being able to determine exactly the spacing and make it continuous. That would be a huge challenge for anyone to do. So we like the concept of shipping the nets assembled. We would go ahead and determine exactly what all the spacings were, so the customer, all they'd have to do is hang the nets, take out an enormous roadblock, as we saw it, for customers to be able to install this product in an efficient manner and keep the nets all lined up, because if you're trying to measure that with a tape measure, as you go across a large span, it's going to be a very uneven look. You want consistency. It's got to be, a very streamlined, aesthetically pleasing look. And
So that's where the jigs came in.
that's where the jigs came in.
It is a device that helps the assembly, or quickens the tack time. Tack time would actually how long it takes you to assemble it. The jigs were made to improve the larger jig. The small jigs are made for repeatability.
This is the jig we use to make our cable racking. The average rack usually has from bottle to bottle is a 5-inch difference, so it makes it a lot easier to have the jig already made out on the CNC machine, so everything can be exact.
We have a variety of CNC machines in our factory, so we have the ability to print, per se, large jigs for any size. We've done over 20-foot tall cable racking systems, and we're able to essentially break that into multiple sheets, but printed continuously so that we're able to do a large jig regardless of the size of the space.
These machines also cut the exact dimensions for the soffit and base, including holes already pre-drilled for the different anchor points needed.
That's why we do it on the machine. We design it out in CAD. We send that CAD design to our CNC operator. They essentially just, kind of the same way you'd print something right to your printer, they're printing it right onto a 3/4 inch plywood sheet, all the hole locations. That way, the assembler, all they have to do is drop the connectors into each one of those holes and start attaching the wire.
And the only thing I have to measure out is from the first turnbuckle to the first bottle. I have to get that measurement right. If I get the measurement right from the bottom and the top, then everything will line up just right inside the jig. The main parts that we're using are the main wire that makes up the rack, the smaller wire that makes the netting that the bottle will actually sit on. Then we have the turnbuckle to give us our tension once we get them lined up where they need to be. Then there's two different connectors. There's a straight connector that one goes on the top and bottom of the rack, and then what's actually holding the smaller wire on to connect to each bottle is a cross connector. But I have to measure out and cut each one of these individually for each rack. Same with the length of the rack. It all comes on a spool. I have to measure it out, cut it for each section to fit into the jig. And same with these, based on whether it's a 1 bottle wide, 2 bottle wide, and 3 bottle wide, or so on.
Though most of our cable wine racks come in one standard size, we also do custom sizing. For each custom size, we print brand new jigs off the CNC machine to the exact specifications of what the client needs.
I've made ones that could be anywhere from 3 bottles high to, I think the tallest I've made was 38 bottles high, and they can be anywhere from 1 bottle wide to as many wide as you want, but I think the biggest I've made is 16 bottles wide. And then it's all pretty much can be custom made to whatever suits the customer or whatever they would need. We've had them built where they went up spiral staircases, down hallways that get shorter as they go. So everything can be custom made to fit anything, any area that would be needed. And that's where the jig comes into play. Helps a lot. The only issues we've ever seen with these was when we first started setting them up, everything was made out of this Lua material, and it's pretty pliable, so that when I was pulling on these to get my measurements all right, these little sections here were breaking out.
When the jigs began to break, how did you improve the process?
By making them 3D prints that are actually more repeatable.
Where I can mount those in there, they're not breaking as easy as these pieces break out of here. So I just mount them in both ends.
We calculate all the wire lengths and so forth. So, the assembler, all they have to do is go off the designs that are done. We tell them exactly what lengths they need for both vertically and horizontally. They cut all the length and then set it in the jigs, and they do the assembly so that when the customer gets it, their net's already done, and it makes it for a much easier installation of the product.
So how easy would installation be for a client, given that you were provided everything through Wine Cellar Innovations? Well, I sought out to prove that even a social media manager could complete the easy installation process of our cable wine racking system. Let's start by going over some components, starting with the soffit. As you can see, this is a soffit made out of our premium redwood. Within it is a plywood box. All pieces were cut using our CNC machine.
A soffit is something above or attached to the ceiling that can be pleasing with a molding or attached to, made their ceiling stronger. If they had basically a ceiling that was not strong at all, we'd build a soffit off the studs.
Up next is our base. Just like the soffit, this is cut using the CNC machine to ensure the exact dimensions for the project that we're working on. Also, the CNC machine drills in those tricky little holes that we screw in the hooks to. You'll see later in the process that this is a huge help. The base platform will need to be secured and run all the way to the back of the wall. If a base mold exists, it'll need to be removed. And if sitting on top of racks, the tabletop will act as the base platform. Now that we've talked about the base, let's take a closer look at those holes that we had talked about. They're pre-drilled by the CNC machine to assure that they are the exact same distance apart from each other. Another important component are these metal hooks that go into the pre-drilled holes and this alligator bit that is provided with each and every cable wine racking system that we sell. The cool thing about this bit is it has small pins on the inside that help hold in these hooks as you screw them in. Using a drill and our alligator bit, with ease we can apply these hooks into our base and soffit. Repeat that step for every hole in both the soffit and base so that you have all of your hooks in. Our next component is the net. The net will come pre-assembled for ease of installation. This is where the fact that we put it together in factory really comes in handy. All you have to do is hang it across the top hooks that you've already installed and you're most of the way there. The next step includes one of the coolest components we have on our cable wine racking system, the tensioners. The idea of the tensioners is by rotating the body left or right, you can loosen or tighten them. Just loosen the tensioners enough to slip them right over the hooks, and this step's done. Next, just tighten each tensioner so that the nets are as rigid as you can make them. Once tightened though, some cross clamps may rotate in or out. You may be able to tighten them with your hand or with an Allen wrench. And as easy as that, our cable wine racking system is ready to hold your favorite wines. Now, not only is it able to hold your standard bottles of wine, but because of the even spacings and the innovative design, it's actually able to handle larger bottles as well. And in case a larger bottle wasn't enough to prove to you just how versatile these racks are, it can handle smaller bottles too. And that's not all. Because of the way that it's designed, it can actually hold any size or shaped bottle, which means bourbon collectors or liquor collectors out there, this may be the perfect way to display your collection. I want to take a moment to note that the cables used in our cable wine racking systems are actually made of stainless steel, meaning that in high humidity areas, there's no need to worry about them rusting over time. They will stay beautiful for years. If you're looking for something unique and different in your wine cellar storage solution, consider going to our website, www.winecellarinnovations.com. There you can send in your measurements and speak with a design consultant about our modern wine series today.